So livestock of an altogether different nature just arrived. So we've got to go get them, and we've got to put together their habitat. I've been waiting a while for this. Let's get started. While these guys may not be as cute and cuddly as the ducks or the chickens, they are going to be a vital part of our farm's ecosystem. I purchased the Verma Hut Plus worm compost bin. It's a 5-layer system that will give my worms plenty of room to expand. There's the lid. Okay, and it comes with this really awesome refrigerator magnet. I don't know if you can, which basically outlines the things that your worms can and should eat. Like, I should limit their exposure to cakes. I don't know why the worms, I mean, I don't blame them. Cakes are delicious. Their primary food should be vegetables, fruits, coffee grounds and tea leaves, eggshells, dried leaves and grasses, and cardboard/paper. And a handy little measuring cup that comes with them. The owner's manual. They sent me a coconut core brick as bedding, which is great, even though I bought extra coconut core because it is the best bedding. A little hand rake and spatula. And some anti-worm, sorry, I think they're anti-ant things, but we'll see when we assemble. It's got 5 little trays. It's got a spigot for your leachate. And it comes with this really awesome worm cover, which I've seen people use cardboard or carpet before, but it's kind of cool. This is a really awesome little setup. I'm pretty pleased so far. Base. Now, I picked my basement for a multitude of reasons. One, it's pretty temperate down here. With the wood furnace going, it stays a pretty comfortable temperature, like ambiently. So I'm not going to have to worry about my worms freezing. The other thing that I really like about it is its convenience. It's close to the kitchen. I don't have to go across the snowy yard in the middle of the night with my coffee grounds or my vegetables from dinner. I can just come downstairs and feed them. I actually have a box set up in my fridge right now for worm-appropriate foodstuffs, so that they would have something when they got here. Let's consult the manual. It says it's stackable, expendable, or extendable. No, it says expendable. Makes me think of the movie with Terry Crews and Jason Statham and Sylvester Stallone. they meant expendable. All right, so we are going to locate the base, which is here, and the hole for the spigot, which is right there. It's got a nifty little washer, which I imagine comes off here. Got two washers. So one's probably going to go on the inside and one's going to go on the outside. Like that. And like that. And then we have a nut. We're going to tighten the nut until the spigot is firmly in place. Nice and snug. We don't want leachate getting everywhere. It's really gross. That seems good. Okay, next step. Okie dokie. Put the white worm saver on the top of the base. I know what this is for. Last time I did vermiculture composting, my worms kept drowning in their own leavings. So this is like a worm excluder, like a queen excluder in a beehive. Now what's really cool is, I don't know if you can see this, but it is concave so that it pools in the bottom. It's a really well-designed little worm bin so far. Okay, place one of the trays on top. Done it once, son. Okay. So it looks like you start with one layer and you fill this with your bedding and your worms and your food and your little worm cover and the lid, and they do their thing, and then you put another layer on top. And then I imagine what happens is you let it go up, 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 and then when you get to the top becomes the bottom, and you clean out your worm castings, and these guys, the bottoms, become the tops. It's kind of like a beehive with bee supers. And I was right, these little plastic things, these are ant traps. This is a point of personal tragedy for me. My first attempt at vermiculture composting, the one I was talking about earlier, fire ants invaded my worm box and ate my worms. It was really sad. I mean, it was kind of heartbreaking because I had done really well. So, they were pumping out, baby worms and the worm castings, and it was like total civilization collapse of the worms. Okay, cool. We're gonna use their coconut core. So I have a handy dandy bucket, 5 gallons, from the hardware store I really, really like, the green hardware store. There are 3 hardware stores, guys. There's the blue hardware store, the orange hardware store, and the green hardware store. There's also a red hardware store. But we don't go to that one very often. Technically, the feed store also has its own bucket color, which it could be called the red hardware store, which is, totally one I visit all the time because it's the feed store. Coconut core literally looks like a brick. probably going to be buying a lot of coconut for in the next few months because I'm going to use it as an alternative for peat moss in my soil blocks. And I have the other smaller bucket with filtered water from my tap. It's been sitting so it's roughly lukewarm. I don't want to temperature shock my worms with water that's too hot or too cold. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm just gonna let that sit until it absorbs the water. So while that's soaking, we're going to cover the bottom of this tray with a layer of cardboard. I guess to prevent stuff from falling down, prevent moisture from getting out. Doesn't really explain why. I'm making really sure to get all of the sticky tape off. I'm not a worm expert per se, but I imagine it's not terribly good for the worms to eat any kind of plastic. I mean, it's not on the unapproved foods list, but we're going to use our best judgment here. So that's looking good. Okay, it says it should be moist, not wet, and it is about, it feels like a wrung out sponge. So you add this to the tray. I mean, it feels a lot like damp potting soil, which I think is what you're really going for. I mean, judging by how much the earthworms like my compost in my garden, this feels about the same. So here's my little worm food box. And apparently you're supposed to bury it in one of the corners. You're supposed to bury it in one of the corners. Not really bury it, but cover it with some bedding. So they get some Brussels sprout ends. Add some coffee grounds and a paper filter that is unbleached. We're going to cover that gently with some food or with some bedding. And now it's the moment of truth. My last, this is my second order of worms. My first order of worms got left in the mailbox in sub-freezing temperatures overnight. And while everyone was like, oh, they're probably hibernating, when I opened up the box, they were freeze-dried. It was like worm jerky. These guys, though, came from like the be-all, end-all of worm farms, Uncle Jim's. I don't remember exactly how many I got. Looks like I'm gonna have to get a pair of scissors to get in here, though. Just gonna kind of shake everybody down so I can make sure I'm not gonna cut anybody in half when I open up the bag. I love the picture of Uncle Jim on the bag. I have an Uncle Jim. He's a farmer too. Tired farmer. Really great, really funny guy. Ooh, I did cut some. I think it's inevitable. They get stuck in the top. Put them in here. Oh, good Lord, here they are. And they are not really moving, but these guys probably really are hibernating because the last package was frozen solid all the way through to the center. These guys at least are kind of mushy still. Oh my god, it's a giant mass of worms. We're just gonna kind of cover them up. Like that right there, that is a giant worm ball. But that's good. That means they've all kind of congealed in the center, which is, ooh. They've all kind of congealed in the center, which is good. It means that the worms will like ball up together. A lot of bugs will ball up together in a way like to basically preserve themselves, and they seem to have done that. They're not frozen to death like the other guys. So I have high hopes for this, but they're not exactly moving either. Hopefully as they warm up, they'll get to work. We'll check on them later. Oh! Okay, yeah, I've got a little bit of movement, which is... Yeah, I've got a little bit of movement. This is good. This is really good. You take this part out of the lid, because it's translucent, lets the light get in, and you put this on top of the worms, and worms are like, oh dear God, it's the daylight. They're like vampires, but not really vampires, but they're like, oh, the sun, and they'll burrow into their bedding, and that's what you want. You want them to burrow. So this, with the light shining on it, encourages them to keep doing that, and then we'll put on the little worm blanket and we'll pop this guy back into the lid. So why go through all the trouble of vermiculture composting? Well, one, it's a reasonably inexpensive amendment that it has a 533 fertilizer like designation, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. I always get the two P's mixed up. It's not really a P though, it's once a K. Anyway, I think it's NPK. I have to look that up. But it's a great soil amendment. Nitrogen is really important for healthy foliage growth, and potassium and phosphorus are really important for flower development. And I was on the Dahlia Growers website, and one of the guys, Steve something or other, I have to look that up too, he wrote an article about growing dahlias in a holistic way, and worm castings are part of what he uses to get them started. And even though I said I wasn't going to do this, I have made a very small investment comparatively in dahlias this year. Not because I want to produce them for flower cutting, although if that's a benefit, like a side benefit of what I'm doing, that would be great. What I'm intending to do is develop strong rootstocks so that I have a good base of dahlias to start with in 2023. It's kind of an R&D thing. I want to see how well I can grow them. And I didn't want to go all in dahlias having never grown them before. But they're so pretty. It was one of, I have made a handful of, but they're pretty buys, and dahlias were one of them. The Autumn Beauty Branching Sunflower was another one. I have more seeds coming, guys. I kind of broke some of my rules, but not as bad as one might think. Another reason that I went with vermiculture composting is to close the loop, so to speak, on some of our food waste. There are certain things that I don't like to feed my chickens, like coffee grounds and eggshells, even though they can eat it. I had some issues with egg eating when we lived in Houston, and I don't want to revisit that. We've broken them of it, so if I can avoid feeding them eggshells, then I would rather feed them to something else. If we can create an input, a fertilizer-like input that, basically out of stuff that we produce by living, that's a win-win. I mean, that's cost negative at that point, I guess, or at least cost neutral. And that's awesome. The other reason, or a third reason, is you can use worm castings as a component in soil blocks to give your plants a little bit of extra oomph when they're coming out of the gate. And I don't see that as, how could that be a bad thing? And again, it's cost neutral. I tried to hit this with a really awesome little flourish, and then I realized I needed to program it. All in all, very little input on my part, lots of output on theirs. So I'm going to go downstairs and check on them. We'll get a little bit of an update, and until next time, take care of yourselves. Stick around and watch how this garden grows.
I'm definitely seeing some movement. I mean, albeit it's a little sluggish, but it's definitely there. Oh, that's coming alive. I don't know if you can see it. I will point it out in the video. Arthur is definitely interested in whatever this is. Interest lost. Ringo's here. Of course, the composter came with a new toy for Arthur.